I'm really glad to be here today, and at first I'd like to thank Ayat for inviting me here. It's really nice to see that this organization has already having 10 years, and this celebration today, it's something really special. I can see it from the start. As you all see, today I will talk about new environments for learning and the possibilities that architecture can contribute to learning. And I was very happy to see that this arrangement today is already very mind-triggering. All these letters on the chairs, which are already gives you the instant thinking about there's something going on, and this unconsciously triggers your brains. And I will show many examples how architecture can help by making education easier and our lives better. The first project is a project I did a couple of years ago. It's a first kindergarten that the kids can change their own facade, so they can influence how their kindergarten looks. This is a kindergarten which has a facade built out of wood and colorful slates, and kids can play with it. But it's not that I wanted to make a toy. The thing was that there was no money for additional playground equipment, and so the architecture helped in the way to design a facade which is also a playground equipment. So what I would like to show you today is that architecture can be a tool. It's a tool that you can use, and a tool that helps you to enable activities. So it's very important that this is a key element of how you can help things to happen. So our architecture can keep us involved, can keep us active, and can inspire us. And I'm sure that this conference today, because it won't be very traditional, as I understand, it will be a great inspiration, and it will certainly be a very efficient one in terms of how our brain will have a good memory of this event. So what I would like to show you, I will show you many pictures from all around the world, from all parts of education, so from kindergarten to adult life. And I will show many characteristics that define what architecture of education is confronted with today. So the first one is the constant change. We all know that changes are happening more and more faster. There are many changes in all of the fields. I put on the back the photo of the Berlin Wall, which was 2 days ago the anniversary. We all know that many events in the history have changed the way we act, the way we think, the way we behave. But it's not just the society. I mean, society is very important because you know that we are different and we think differently as our parents did, and of course our children and children of them will also be different as we are. But this is good because we are not in the same environment as our fathers were, or our children will not be in the same environment we have today. So a change is a good thing, and adapting to change is something what you have to done in order to be efficient. So all these changes are not just in society, there are also changes in technology and changes in education. So, but all these changes, they need to have some answer also in the how the spaces are designed. So in terms of learning, we all know that many changes have happened in last 20 years, especially with the technology, because with the cell phone you can now access to all the knowledge. You can alphabetically name all the Egyptian kings in 5 seconds. But of course it's very important not to just learn data so much, but in order how to learn the processes, how to deal with all the information we have. So it's going from the factography more into the process to getting to know, but of course this changes, because if you want to learn facts, it's enough to sit and listen. But if you want to learn about processes, you have to be active. You have to be involved into it. You have to give your part into it. So this change in in learning also implies change in spaces, how we treat architecture. So, of course, being in a very changeable world, it means that also employers and the whole world has some expectations about how the students, from the kids to the adults should be. So there are many studies have been done to this field, and the desirable qualities of students in 21st century are that they have to be creative, they have to be adaptable, they have to know how to collaborate with themselves, with each other. They need to be responsive because the world is moving very fast, and so the responses quick responses are desired. And of course, the self-direction, meaning that they have to be very self-initiative. They have to be able to do things on their own. So, of course, in order to be like this, they would need to have special spaces for that. And in OECD, they defined what are the effective learning environments. And of course, those are the environments that support collaboration, and also they support individual work. They support formal and informal learning, which is very important because there is much bigger part of informal learning, and it's going to be bigger and bigger. And of course, the spaces for learning need to be very responsive to different activities, different changes, which is very big challenge for architecture, because we know that we are having a project today, but the changes will happen tomorrow, in 5 years, in 20 years. But we have to be as flexible in order to enable these changes in the future. So, of course, architecture can also look up after some studies. For example, the learning pyramid is very interesting because it shows that active learning is the learning which gives you the best remedy rate, so it's more effective. And so that's why also the contemporary architectural education architecture tries to focus on those activities. And so, for example, this can start by early ages. Also in the kindergarten, kids can participate in various activities. They play together, they are part of the process. Similar like Montessori concept now is getting more and more popular all around, that kids are collaborating with themselves and they are part of their education actively. Of course, this is example from Denmark. You can see there are 2 playrooms in the primary school. I mean, two rooms are connected just with a curtain. So this eases how they can go from one class to another class. That shows that the borders or between the rooms and also between people are getting less and less defined, which is a global trend. All of the things in contemporary life are just getting more hybrid. There are no exact borders. Things are very left to the definition, which is very good because we live in a very exciting world, and we have a really good opportunity also as architects to give a response to it. And of course, additional and very important issue, which is also a very important topic in education, is how much and what to do with the very big influence of the technology inside of the education. Technology has changed really a lot lately. How we act, how we see things, and also education and education architecture. We have to do a proper response to it. But as I will show later, there is a very interesting ratio between high technology and no technology at all. So this will be one of the big challenges of future educational architecture to cope with. I will show you, because mostly the education is happening indoors, and I will show you now the main principles of interior design which define contemporary educational facilities. And these 3 are multi-use, mobility, and flexibility. I will show several examples of these approaches. So, for example, in this photo you can see foldable tables and and chairs which they can be removed, and this means that you can make a space according to its needs, so you can just put it away when you don't need the space. Another very important issue is to use mobile equipment, mobile furniture, meaning that you can move it away and use space for other activities. This is very important also concerning the costs and especially the use, because by having this, one example is a wardrobe, which you can move away, you can separate places, you can divide them, you can create various ambience. So architecture and interior design on wheels is what is very important because it allows flexibility. On this photo you can see another example of mobile furniture. This is a classroom that you can just come to it. You can bring art classroom, you can bring a music classroom. You don't need to make big specially designed spaces for that, because they would be empty most of the time. So you just have to focus how to increase the efficiency of space, because this is not just that this is public money, but also it turns out that for sake of quality education, the congestion of activities is good. And of course, if they happen in unreal or not unreal, in unexpected environments, this makes our brains also trigger a lot. So another example is how to use multi-space in various ways is to eliminate the corridors, for example. Corridors are just passing to one and another room, but if you make a living room inside, like a living room inside of this space, you can use it for theater, you can use it for sport activities, you can use it for various other things, and the frequency of use is high. And at the same time, it allows to each group room to have a direct access. So central space is like a square in the city where all the good things happen. And of course, in contemporary education architecture, there are less and less borders. So people are just having open doors, and that the kids or students can move around freely. This is an example from kindergarten. You can also see in the top photo, you can see there is a specially designed light furniture which kids can move, and they can co-create their spaces. It's like Lego blocks, and you can influence how the space will look. Another of those examples is the multi-use, and things are getting more multifunctional all the time. So you have in one cell phone you have 20 different appliances that you had before. All the life is just getting, because actually it is the human development has just two paradigms. One is to use less material in order to do the same thing, and the other one is to use one thing for more purposes. So this is one example of typical development, and you can see these are the stairs, which are at the same time a library and also a sliding toboggan for kids. And you can imagine how much fun this can bring. So it's not just the stairs, it's also a theater, it's a library, you can sit, you can play, and it makes really this, what I was saying, so congested environment. Many things can happen in one place. Of course, this changes how you use spaces. And now it's very popular to say that 100% of spaces in kindergartens or in schools are learning spaces. There are many examples of how to do this also without doing a new school, because if you're doing new design, it's easy to design this way. But there are examples from various countries. They did it on existing schools. So, for example, there is a kindergarten in Austria. They just decided they will put down all the doors, and so everything became one space with different corners. And when I visited the kindergarten, they were saying that first 3 months for the teachers it was very horrible. they were under a lot of stress because kids were everywhere. It was hard to control them. But after 3 months, they get used to it, to the system, because humans, we are very adaptable creatures. And so they said that they wouldn't change it. And you also have schools in, for example, in Denmark, I will show you the examples later, where they decided they don't want to have a definition between learning time and a recess. So they just removed the bell, and they said all the time, not just the space, but also all the time is learning time. This is an example from Denmark. It shows how, it's just one random photo of the kindergarten I visited. It shows how kids can use floor to, and also you see the teacher. And the thing is that you see kids all around. So the teachers have to organize them or just leave them to their own activities. Because why is this important? This is important because children are different, and we are all different. And so we have different ways how we learn, and we have different backgrounds. Some of them have parents who took their kids all around, and they have a lot of time to speak with them. They have proper education to motivate them. But of course, we don't have all the same backgrounds, and it's good that school and kindergarten are environments which you make these things equal. So you can leave the kids to do different types of learning in the same school at the same time. So you can see some can better learn on the floor informally. Others prefer more formal way, like sitting behind the desk. And also, as you see, those all examples show how a very informal approach to learning can be, and this seems to have very good results for the kids, because they don't feel it like as a pressure, but more as fun activity. You can also use, for example, walls, because this is, for example, magnet chalkboard. You can use it as a gallery. You can use it as a chalkboard to draw, and by this you are using it better as just the empty wall, or just even the wall that has some designs on it. Also, you can remodel some corridors in order to trigger attention. You can see there are some mats on the wall, so kids on the right side, they just can take them down. This is a primary school also in Copenhagen. This is one example of renovation of the school in Slovenia. You can see the corridor just got additional equipment, and so kids can do it. They can use it as they want, how they want, and it's gives them, I mean, it's a very nice feeling for everyone to have control over the space, and that you can move it, you can rearrange it, and so this contemporary interior design should enable these types of arranging the educational space. Another photo, for example, shows that even the stairs can be used as a passive element of learning. This is an example how to teach them the colors and the names of the colors. This was the interior design approach, but also we have designs for the building. Of course, the interior design is more important because it's where the students are most of the time. But I would like to show you also one example of school, of a kindergarten in Japan. It's a Fuji kindergarten in Tokyo, which has the most special element of this kindergarten is the roof. So the roof is a terrace, and kids can run over it, and kids can play on it. What is very important that on this kindergarten they have very few playground equipment. They have just one toboggan, and that's all. Because they have trees, kids can climb on trees, and they have this roof where kids are forced to play games which are social. So they don't use their toys, but they play games, more basic games. Because, for example, and then they did a study which showed that they monitored one child and they see that one child in just 20 minutes, this is you can see the scheme, how much running did he do in 20 minutes, and on average a child do around 6 kilometers a day. So this is really good because, you know, physical education brings also, physical activity brings also health. It increases the mind activity, so all the benefits, and this is just a passive, so just the roof did this for them. Another example I will show is it's a kindergarten I did, and it also has a didactical facade. It's because also not just the roof, but also facade can be used for this. So this is the first magnetic facade with foldable and very lightweight magnets, and kids can use them to play and teachers can use them to play, and it has many benefits. For example, this facade, which is made from these different shapes, this shows kids can learn colors, kids can learn shapes, kids can learn relations between different shapes. They can arrange them in some imaginative forms, they can arrange them in some real representing forms, and by this way they are improving their eye and hand coordination. They are playing, so they are increasing their IQ and EQ, and this is just a small element which costed €900 for total. So it's not expensive, and kids can use it. And what is very good, they are really in touch with their kindergarten. They can touch it, they can play with it. They are much more involved than just a building with nothing. And of course, they can present different topics. Teachers can arrange them, for example, for summer holidays, for winter holidays. They have lots of these various elements. They can, and of course, then their educational facility is different every time. So every time they come to school, it's a bit more different. So diversity of learning space is also very important, because it shows that because if we are in different environments, and if the environment changes, this triggers our brains, and our brain activity is more alert, and by more alert brains we can learn more. And rich creative environments are very often contemporary approach to increase also the efficiency in not just in schools and kindergartens, but also in working environments. So here you see different from one school, different ambience of informal types of learning, and which brings us to that the schools are becoming and kindergartens are becoming much more like children museums. So it's not anymore an institution, but it's more like a place you go to learn by doing fun things. And these children museums are very popular around the world now, because kids can then play different roles. This is one example how they can play a role of a supermarket or a marketplace, and they have various activities they are put into it, and so this it proves to be very successful. Of course, they also have this based on also on religious base, topical base. So they can learn about in big cities in the United States. They educate them about different cultures, which is very important in multicultural environment. And the good thing is that the kids can touch, they can press buttons, they can see what happens, and they are active. So being active, they don't feel this like learning. So that they don't accept, in their minds it's just playing, but they learn a lot. So it's a mind game. And of course, at the same time, they have various. This is a children's museum in Boston that has also some climbing elements, and they are improving their motorics. They play, they improve their skills, and so it's a really fun place to be. And of course, all these changes have changed how contemporary schools and kindergartens look. For example, this is Vitra School near Stockholm. It's a first school, it's a primary school which has no group rooms. So there are no group rooms. It's basically just just the environment, like a landscape arrangement. You can see how complex the floor plan looks. So it's various different environments for different activities. So you can see in one side you have the tables, the other side is like they call it a mountain, and it's auditorium for. But there are no closed rooms, or there are just few closed rooms. As for the one you can see on the back, which also has the exterior to be used as a chalkboard. And so this is how classes are arranged. They are arranged differently. They are on open space. Sometimes if they need more quiet ambient, because quiet ambient is also important, they go to the closed environments. So it's just very flexible, and this changes. This shows how the environment in schools is changing. And we can see on this scheme, on the upper scheme, you can see the traditional typology is very in order. You can see it. There is a corridor, and there are classrooms. But on the picture below, you can see just more open, more flexible, more diverse environment, which also affects how teachers are teaching. Because in traditional typology, they were more like pyramid structure, where the teacher was explaining and there was more structure. But now the teacher, in many of those examples, they function more as a trainers. So they come to each kid individually, and kids have to search for their approval and also attention in terms of the finishing. Because, for example, as you probably heard, last year they opened first iPad-based school in Holland, and kids, they just have to be in school from 10 to 2. Otherwise, they can be at home. They can come. It's very free, so they don't have any bell anymore, and it's very flexible environment, which also demands. I mean, these are very test examples, because the future school will probably be more informal. It will be more like, because of the technology, because of using the equipment like iPads or computers, it will change how they will learn. But the very important thing is that social interaction is still very important. So this will be a place for gathering, where you can learn and where you can learn yourself team building, team and teamwork and social skills. But these places will be very flexible. Another example is going from schools, from primary schools. This is a secondary school in Copenhagen. You can see also how this environment looks. So it's very open. It's not traditional. They have some aulas inside, but otherwise there are many informal places of different environment, different ambience of how you can spend your time in school. It's not about learning in traditional frames, but more about experiencing the learning through various activities. This is already one example of university. It also shows different informal spaces where students can gather. This is in Sweden, Karolinska Institute for Future Learning Environments. They're trying to do some studies on it, and you can see the same pattern. So they're using different ambience to show the diversity and different equipment. For example, you can see this is one of such furnitures which can be used for lying, for sitting, for standing. It can be also a stage, so you can just move it freely, open up. You can make it various compositions out of it. And another example is to use curtains. So this is an example how in one very big hall you can use this hall for different activities, like different group rooms. They can open, but of course you can just remove all the furniture away, and you have a hall for some big event or some other activities needed. And all of these principles have been much used in contemporary office design. because there are several studies who show that this increases the efficiency. This is, for example, Walt Disney Studios in Los Angeles, and this is how they have their meeting room. So if you want to have privacy, you have a wall, but if you want to have a meeting and show a presentation, then you can arrange already a whole theater-like ambient. This is the same. It might look even like a kindergarten, but these are serious companies like Google and big advertising companies. They all use these environments because the studies shown that if you are in the unexpected and creative environment, you also get more creative. Now I will show you now the study, which was carried out 9 years ago, and they had two groups of students. And the first group of students, they went to an interview, and behind the interviewer there was a photo of 15 black crosses, regular crosses. And then they changed the group, and they put a photo of the crosses with a red and rotated X. And they didn't pay any attention to the photos. It was just behind, because our brains are processing. Our brains are constantly processing information, and they found out that the students in the second group were more creative, because their mind have seen the irregularity. They have seen that things are different. So in this way, they were more relaxed to doing creative solutions. And when you have to be creative, it helps to be in creative environment. And of course, that's why I'm sure that tonight's arrangement is much better than traditional conference where you have auditorium, and it will prove. I'm sure it will prove it's right just for that. And so you can see examples from various places, like, because they are trying, as I said before, the borders are just vanishing. So you don't know if this is free time or is it job time, but this is job time because they are paid to play basketball. But at the same time, they are more efficient because their brain relaxes, and you cannot be creative and be very efficient working by the hour. You just have to relax, because we have our limitations, and by doing such environments, also in real offices, they try to loosen the atmosphere. And you can see, for example, this is Google in Zurich, and they just have meetings, and they're having sofa in a boat. So one could say that this is crazy, but they're all behind that. There are heavy studies of brain function and environment. So they are doing this just with one purpose: to be better, more efficient, and at the same time it's fun. So employees, everybody knows what the offices look like in Google. So everybody is very motivated, and this is how trend is going. For example, many things can be done really informally. Meetings can be done. This is one supermarket at Microsoft, and they just can take everything. So these borders are really changing. This is an office in Lego company. Of course, they make toys, but they have also this sliding toboggan, which gives them the feeling of informality, and people who are working there are more satisfied with their working environment. The other very interesting thing is also the studies, because architects can learn a lot from psychology, environmental psychology, because many studies have been done, and especially the biggest inspiration is the commercial architecture, because you cannot imagine how many studies have done companies in order to make you buy things, in order to make you do what they want. So these elements can be also used in a good way to improve the environments, to improve the possibility of learning. And one of those is, for example, it's very interesting, what I like to show, it's the use of a natural environment. Of course, you cannot make all the time the natural environment inside of the building, but the studies have shown that already photos of the environment or nature, they increase the efficiency, they reduce the stress, because after all, we are basically still human beings as a part of animal kingdom, and we have some pre-patterns in our brains, principles that we work for, and so that's why green photos, just the photos of green can trigger this mind activity. So that's why I'm coming to the second very important part, is that it's very trendy, it's back to the nature or back to the basics. Because we talked a lot already about technology, but funny thing is that also nature has very, very good qualities that are more and more being used. So I will show now exterior of the school, so learning environment outside, and I will show some basic characteristics, because we can see now the trend is that more and more natural elements are being used as a playground. Like you see here, there are some trees, some rocks, just bushes and trees to climb on. So this not makes it more interesting, it makes it also natural and cheaper. This is one kindergarten in Denmark also. The Danish have really good, the Scandinavian countries have really good examples, though they don't have the best climate to do it, but they have still very good examples of arrangement. And you can see that they just have it very natural environment. They make some hills, because hills are good for children motorics. Kids can run around, can run through it. They use some old pipes, or they just go through it. So it's very relaxed type of arrangement, because you might see in the obsession in last couple of years, the playgrounds became very dense with all the equipment. But the problem with the equipment is that just few people can use it, or they can just play one way. But it's better to leave kids to their imagination, because, for example, the playgrounds that are designed, they are mostly designed for one way of use, and this is how the adults or designers see them. But the children can play with various things. For example, you would all see here a paper, but for a child, this can be, just a second, this can be a sword. This can be a binocular, this can be anything. So their mentality is to use things, and it's good for their brains to leave them things undefined, because they define it later. And so this is very important lesson for architects and designers of educational environment. And as you can see, the reduction of the elements, they are not so full, because then kids are forced to play social games. They have to play with themselves. They have to talk with each other. It's not just that they're, and this is what's helping them. So the environment is pushing them to be collaborative, to be active, to be all of these things. And you can see on the photo this is a very popular toy, but it's not very efficient. It's just problematical in terms of democratic access to the playground. So the other thing which also shows this and proves it are that actually the best architecture and the best environment for learning is the nature. And in many countries, especially in Nordic countries, they have these forest kindergartens, meaning that no architecture is the best architecture. And they found out, studies have shown that children who are in these forest kindergartens, because they are playing outside all the time, they have better health, they have better attention span, they shout less, they fight less, they get larger attention span, which is a very big problem. So it has all the benefits. And now in some countries they also arrange that mixed system. So if there is a kindergarten, they buy a property in the wood, and they take children 3 times a week there, and to combine the traditional with this natural type of education. And also the kids, they don't, because we are part of the nature, kids, they follow their teacher naturally by their instinct. because it's like in the nature. And this is very efficient. So the teachers do not fight for attention, but they just get it because the environment pushes it to it, and it sounds really. And kids don't get boring in such an environment. You cannot get bored in the woods. Another thing, which is also now very important, and is getting more and more important, is the focus on active environments. And this concerns us all. So it's not just about kids, students, and the ones who are involved in the educational system, but also all others. So you can see that it can start really fast, because the borders, as I said, between different types of using spaces have changed, and we all do use spaces differently, but now we have to also use them differently in traditional educational environment, because by our nature we use spaces as we feel. Because, for example, in a living room, sometimes you eat in front of the television, but it's not your dining room. Sometimes you can get asleep in front of the television, and it's not your sleeping room. So the flexibility is in our nature. We have to try to enforce this. And as you see, this is an example from Jure in France, where kids are going to museums, and they can choose which picture they like, and they draw it, and at the same time they learn about the picture, just not by forcing, because they are choosing what to do, but at the same time they are getting to know different styles, different ambience, and this way they think it's a game. It's not educational process, and which is good. But this also changes how we see all the environments. For example, this is one example. This is a museum, but now it's a conference. Maybe it will be a dance floor. Maybe it can be something else. So this flexibility of spaces is very important thing, and it also changes how we act and how we use things. And for example, this another example shows how also adults can use museums. Before that, it was traditional museum. You went once, you saw it, and you didn't have to return. But now it changed around, and so now you just go to the museum to listen to music. You go to the museum to see some documentaries. You go and you learn by yourself using the technology. So there are many ways how traditional things have changed, and this also influenced the architecture of museums, because the studies have shown that in the last 20 years, when they are making extension of museums, only 20% of the extension was used for what they want to show, and 80% was used for additional activities, restaurants, learning rooms, libraries, bookstores. So from museum, which was very static, it became a space of using space differently. And the same is with the library. So this is one library where kids can also play in it. They have different ambience, how to do it. This, for example, it's a library that maybe even looks like the new library you have in Riga. But it shows that how you can see, you can take books, you can lie down, it's more informal. It's just not that you go there and take a book and take it home. No, you go there, you stay there, you check books, you read books, you meet some people. So it changes how we use spaces. For example, this is one library, summer library in the park, which is also changing how the libraries should look like. And they're very successful because people use this, they really like to use it. All of these elements of the public space are very important, and it makes people to be more active, which is good, because more you're active, better is for your health. It improves your ability to think, and of course this creates better quality of life. And this is also one example that shows if there won't be this furniture, this would be an empty square. Because with architecture you can model, in the interior design or in the exterior, you can model what effects you would like to have. And of course there are many ways how to influence on it. So it is also the various strategies of arranging space. This, for example, if you put a bench, people will stop there. If people will stop there and sit, other people will try to go there to the gathering, and this way you fill up the square. Otherwise, if you just draw the lines, people will just pass the line. No matter what, you don't explain the line. The psychology of people is that they just go along with the line. And of course, you can see everywhere that things are changing, as what we saw in kindergartens, in schools, or in the companies. It's now coming to the public space. For example, this is a beach in Paris, and this is very successful. And all of these ambients are just increasing quality of living in the city. And of course, there are many potentials how to use spaces. For example, you can see here using the upper road to have swings, and it's a very low-cost solution, but it adds to it, and especially what it's very important, that it triggers your mind, because if you see that this can happen, it means that many things can be is possible. So the feeling of having the possibilities is inviting to do things differently, better, and to move the progress further. So basically, my lecture is, to conclude it, I would say that architecture is really a tool that can offer you more experience. If you use it, it can offer you the diversity, it can make your life more interesting. And especially in learning, this is very important key, because architecture can help teachers. I mean, pedagogues and teachers, educators, they are doing their job really well, and they are very. As from my experience, I've been traveling all around, and I see they are very trying. They're working hard, but with some additional help of spaces, their work could be easily arranged. And as you saw, also. Creating environments differently would increase the efficiency, the quality of life, and that's why I show this as a process which is happening to each and every one of us. So thank you very much.